Hello, everyone. When we left off together last time, we were in Judges chapter 9, and picking back up there, this chapter has been dubbed Abimelech's conspiracy. So Abimelech had killed 70 of his brothers in Shechem and upon a stone, and Jotham, one of the brothers, had ran away, and in this the Abimelech was made king, and then when that was told to Jotham that Abimelech had been made king, he stands on Mount Gerizim. And remember, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, was kind of this mountain. Mount Gerizim being the Mount of Blessings, and Mount Ebal being the mountain of curses. And so he's lifting his voice out to the people, and he's crying out, and he shares this parable with them, which is basically a parable of trees, where these trees are calling out, wanting a king to be anointed over them. And so the trees call out to an olive tree, they call out to a fig tree, and they call out to a vine. And then basically the all those the olive tree, the fig tree, and the vine will not leave their God appointed places. And then all the trees said to the bramble, and here the bramble is kind of like briars and whatnot, and which represents Abimelech, says, "You come and reign over us." And the bramble said to the trees, "If in truth you anoint me as king over you, then come and take shelter in my shade. But if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon." And then in verse 16, "Now therefore, if you have acted in truth and sincerity in making Abimelech king, and if you have dealt well with Jerubbaal," remember Jerubbaal is Gideon, "and his house, and have done to him as he deserves." And then in 19, "If then you have acted in truth and sincerity with Jerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice in Abimelech, and let him also rejoice in you." So Jotham was basically saying, if you guys have done right by making Abimelech king, then or judge, rejoice. If not, then civil war will be amongst you. And really, in this parable, it's really a prophecy as well, because not long after that, we see in verses 22 where after Abimelech had reigned over Israel 3 years, God sent a spirit of ill will between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. And the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech, that the crime done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal might be settled, and their blood be laid on Abimelech their brother who killed them, and on the men of Shechem who aided him in the killing of his brothers. And the men of Shechem set men in ambush against him on the tops of the mountains, and they robbed all who passed by them along that way, and it was told to Abimelech. This is a big deal, because along these ways there's this robbing going on, and all of this robbing that's taking place. This would be the monies and plunder that would be taken from the people would normally be going to Abimelech for taxes, and of course Abimelech would look down upon that. And then in verses 26 on, we really see this civil war taking place. There's this son Gaul, of the son of Ebed, who comes with his brothers and goes over to Shechem, and the men of Shechem put their confidence in him. So he's in Shechem, and he's basically saying, "Hey, who is this guy? Who is this Abimelech, and who is Shechem that we should serve him?" And so he goes on, and there's an uprising under this Gaul, the son of Ebed. And then in verse 30, when Zebul, the ruler of the city, heard the words of Gaul, the son of Ebed, his anger was aroused, and he sent messengers to Abimelech secretly. So Zebul was the governor of Shechem. And here's this civil uprising under the Gaul, the son of Ebed. They're looking to take over Shechem. So the governor Zebul secretly gets a message to Abimelech, and Abimelech brings men in, as we see in these further verses here in chapter 9. And then Gaul goes out in verse 39, leading the men of Shechem, and fought with Abimelech. And Abimelech chased him, and he fled from him, and many fell wounded to the very entrance of the gate. Then Abimelech dwelt at Arumah, and Zebul drove out Gaul and his brothers, so that they would not dwell in Shechem. And so he's defeated. This Gaul guy is defeated, and then the next day, people come out of the city, come out of Shechem, evidently probably to plunder, the men that are dead in the field. And then Abimelech basically cuts everybody off, stands at the gate of the city, and it says in verse 45, so Abimelech fought against the city all that day. He took the city and killed the people who were in it, and he demolished the city and sowed it with salt. And salt would make the ground sterile, and really pointing to that the city of Shechem would forever be barren. And 46, now when all the men of the tower of Shechem had heard that, they entered the stronghold of the temple of the god Berith. And remember, we talked about towers in some earlier studies, how towers would be built in these cities, and they were really a stronghold. I mean, they were an important part of the citizenry. And so the people had entered into the stronghold of the temple, and the Abimelech and his men gather these logs, basically set them up at the base of this tower, burn the tower down, and it says in verse 49, so that all the people of the tower of Shechem died, about 1,000 men and women. And then in verse 50, Abimelech goes to Thebez, and this is where he's going to meet his match. And so at Thebez, there was a strong tower in the city, and all the men and women, all the people of the city fled there. Again, here's another city with a tower, shut themselves in. Then they went up to the top of the tower. So Abimelech came as far as the tower and fought against it, and he drew near the door of the tower to burn it with fire. But a certain woman dropped an upper millstone on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. Remember, the millstone, there's a lower part and an upper part, and these could be rather large. So ever how she did it, she pushes the upper part of his millstone out. It lands on his head. It doesn't completely kill him. And let's see here. And then in verse 54, Abimelech calls quickly to the young man, his armor bearer, and says to him, draw your sword and kill me, lest men say of me, a woman killed him. So his young man thrust him through, and he died. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they departed every man to his place. Thus God repaid the wickedness of Abimelech, which he had done to his father by killing his 70 brothers, and all the evil of the men of Shechem God returned on their own heads, and on them came the curse of Jotham, the son of Jerubbaal. And so Abimelech basically got the same thing in a sense, right? He'd killed his 70 brothers on the stone, and here he is killed by a millstone dropped on his head. And then in chapter 10, Abimelech's now dead, and then Tola, we get into some judges here, Tola, Jair, and I thought there was one more. Okay, so Tola in chapter 10 says, after Abimelech there arose to save Israel Tola, the son of Puah, the son of Dodo. Not much said of him here. He dwelt in Shamir in the mountains of Ephraim, judged Israel 23 years, and then he died and was buried. And then Jair arises afterwards. He was a Gileadite and judged Israel 22 years. And of note was 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys. And then he died and was buried in Kaman. And then verses 6, Israel oppressed again. And then the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served the Baals and the Ashtoreths, the gods of Syria, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the people of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines. And they forsook the Lord and did not serve him. So the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel. And he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hands of the people of Ammon. From that year they harassed and oppressed the children of Israel for 18 years. So the Israelites were in service to Ammon and the Philistines for 18 years. And something of note here, it's like it's even getting more so, right? At first we were just seeing Baal and Ashtoreth, but now we're adding to the list of other gods that they're seeking out. The gods of Syria, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the people of Ammon, the gods of the Philistines. So the list is being added to. And I want to reference back to Deuteronomy chapter 6. And I didn't have this marked, so it's going to take me a second. But Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 14 and 15. Chapter 6, verses 14. You shall not go after other gods, the gods of the peoples who are all around you. For the Lord your God is a jealous God among you, lest the anger of the Lord your God be aroused against you and destroy you from the face of the earth. And here they are. We've seen it time and time again, and now the list is even larger than it's been, going after these other gods. And something of note here is there was this popular belief during this time period that in the Near East was that particular deities owned particular sections of land. So when people would move from one land to another within inside of these regions, they were expected to worship the gods of this new area, and 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 the Israelites then were basically following the traditions of their day by seeking after these other gods. And it says, thus the culture of the time made it difficult for many Israelites to ignore the gods of their new locality. And just reading that and thinking about that, reflect on that for yourself, because it's no different than what we experience today. It's maybe not basked and robed, or it's not this outright worship of a separate God, but whatever the idols is, and I keep bringing this up, it could be entertainment, pornography, sex, money, cars, things, stuff. What is it? You've got to reflect on that yourself. But nonetheless, we're surrounded by it. This, even to the point of this self psychology that we're, that's swimming around of me and how to improve myself, right? Whereas in the Bible, as we're learning and as we'll continue to see, it's in giving that you receive. It's in servanthood. It's in serving that you receive, right? And love your God, the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and loving your neighbor as yourself. So just wanted to bring that up. And then it says in verse 10, the children of Israel cried out to the Lord, saying, we have sinned against you, because we have both forsaken our God and served the Baals. And then in verse 11, the Lord responds right back to the children of Israel. And he says, did I not deliver you from the Egyptians, and from the Amorites, and from the people of Ammon, and from the Philistines? Also the Sidonians and Amalekites and Maonites oppressed you, and you cried out to me, and I delivered you from their hand. Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods. This is something here. Therefore I will deliver you no more. Go and cry out to the gods which you have chosen. Let them deliver you in your time of distress. And first reading this, I just stopped right there. It's God is even recognizing, man, you guys, go elsewhere. You've been doing this all along. He's reminding them here, hey, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. You cry out, I deliver, I deliver, I deliver. And then in verse 15, and the children of Israel said to the Lord, we have sinned. Do to us whatever seems best to you. Only deliver us this day, we pray. So they put away the foreign gods from among them and served the Lord. And his soul could no longer endure the misery of Israel. This is a great mercy that we see here. And in the Old Testament, I hear comments about the Old Testament of, it's wrath, it's wrath, it's wrath. There's so much mercy here, guys, and I hope that you've seen it along the way. And this is a huge, huge moment of mercy here. And his soul could no longer endure the misery of Israel. Then the people of Ammon gathered together and encamped in Gilead, and the children of Israel assembled together and encamped in Mizpah. So now you've got Ammon in Gilead, you've got the Israelites in Mizpah, and it's the staging now of this. Something's about to take place, and the people, the leaders of Gilead, said to one another. So here they are. Who is the man who will begin the fight against the people of Ammon? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. In chapter 11 gets in where we're going to see Jephthah, the Gileadite, come to reign here, and as judge. And we'll see that next time together. I've only got about 45 seconds left. There's some good things coming up, guys. I just read ahead. We're going to see the angel of the Lord show up again. Looks like I have company here coming in. Oh, there he is. God bless you guys. I'll see you next time.